Hello and good day to everyone. We are Bianca Abastillas, Joaquin Delfin, and Brendan Fausto, bringing you an analysis, evaluation, and interpretation of the vulnerabilities and needs of the Mabini municipality. So, for our presentation flow, we'll first start with a brief introduction of the area, followed by the municipality's data profile. We will then discuss the identified subgroups we have observed, the food insecurity status, and the comparison of said subgroups. Based on all the previous topics mentioned, we will then present the needs and vulnerabilities we have identified from the data, followed finally by our findings, recommendations, and further conclusions of the Mabini municipality. Moving forward, we'll begin with a brief background on Mabini. So Mabini, originally known as Doña Alicia, is a second-class coastal municipality in the Philippines' Mindanao province of Davao de Oro, which is formerly known as the Compostela Valley. It had a population of 43,552 inhabitants in the 2020 census, with a density of 110 people per square kilometer, and that means there are 280 people per square mile. The area is composed of and subdivided into 11 barangays, which are Kadunan, Pindasan, Kuambog, Tagnanan, Anitapan, Kabuyuan, Del Pilar, Libodon, Golden Valley, Pangibiran, and San Antonio. In terms of Mabini's geography and economy, an important thing to note is that two of Mabini's barangays, Anitapan and Golden Valley, are considered to be geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, or GIDAs, which make them less accessible to people. Additionally, here is a chart which represents the poverty incidence in Mabini from 2000 to 2015. Although it has gone down significantly since the year 2000, it has continued to fluctuate between around 32 to 39% from 2006 to 2015 below the poverty line.
This profile will help us further understand and contextualize the situation of the municipality and will later assist throughout the analysis and interpretation of their data. For the presentation of the profile of the Mabini municipality, we must remember and emphasize that there were a total of 59 households in this given data set. Like Joaquin mentioned, some of the Mabini's barangays are classified as GIDAs, also known as Geographically Isolated and Disadvantaged Areas. There is also another type of classification of residences, and it's called the poblacion. According to the Data Dictionary, it is the central business district of a municipality. It's exhibited As exhibited in this table, we may identify that there are more families residing in GIDA areas with 41 households as compared to Poblacion with only 18 households.
Presented is a box plot chart of the household sizes in Mabini. The most common household sizes are around 5 to 6 people per household, which makes the average household size of Mabini around 6 people. However, there are also some households that go above and below these numbers, with 3 being the smallest and 11 being the largest household.
Moving forward, this is a histogram representing the age of household heads in each family. We decided to present this type of data through categorized or group age ranges to effectively display the number of household heads in the general age category. As can be observed in the graph, most of the household heads are in the age range of either 31 to 36 years old or 43 to 48-year-olds. These both amounted to 13 household heads each. On the other hand, the least frequent in the age ranges presented to us is 61 to 63 years old with only 2 household heads. Next in the profile is the current working status of the household heads. This pie chart presents to us the current educational and working status of the household head of each respondent in the dataset. It was noted that only 49.2% or 29 of the household heads have regular work with the requirement of working 40 hours a week. Given this, the rest do not have stable jobs. This is followed by the 33.9% that have occasional work and 15.3% who are unemployed. Lastly, one household head did not answer this question.
The following graph depicts the primary occupation of each household head over the previous 6 months. As you can see, the most frequent profession of a household head in Mabini is farming. Next up, miners account for 15.3% of household heads, followed by drivers, mga mag-uma, and banana plantation laborers, who each account for 8.5%. Other uncommon professions include security guards, teachers, construction workers, housewives, sari-sari store workers, harvesters, environmental officers, and automotive workers. And now we have each household's weekly food and non-food expenses. According to the raw data provided to us, Mabini households spend as little as 75 pesos to 6,510 pesos per week on non-food goods. But on the other hand, they spend as much as 388 pesos to 7,807 pesos on food. We can see from the graph and raw data provided to us that the Mabini households spend more on food than on non-food goods.
The last two graphs that we will present for the profile will be in relation to the household and their membership or participantship for the two specific government programs. These include 4Ps and SSBFP. First and foremost, because we are tackling 4Ps, I will give a little context. The 4Ps are also known as the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program. This program provides and grants conditional cash grants to the poor in the government's effort to improve health, nutrition, as well as education of children. Moreover, they have two objectives, specifically social assistance and social development. There are two types of grants that the 4Ps give out, specifically health and education grants. This brings us to the first graph. The amount of households who are a member of 4Ps are 55% who said yes, while 49.7% said no. 3.4 of them did not have an answer. The next graph represents the number of households that have children who are beneficiaries under the SSBFP. For context, this stands for School-Based Feeding Program, which is implemented by the Department of Education. Its aim is to address malnutrition amongst public school students by providing nutritious food products and fresh milk to these children. While addressing hunger and improving nutritional status of said children, they are able to encourage education more, improve overall nutrition, boost health and immune system. Lastly, SBFP also strives to improve school presence among children, teaching vegetable growing as well as practicing important health procedures and habits.
We were able to restrict the scope of our analysis by dividing the area into 4 subgroups depending on their food security status. We have households in subgroup A that are food secure, as well as the mildly secure households for B. For subgroups C and D, we have families classified as moderately and severely secure, respectively. To go further in depth here with more graphs and percentages, we have Brendan who will present the food and security status as well as the subgroup comparisons.
Food insecurity status and subgroup comparisons. Okay, so for the household food insecurity access scale situation in Mabini, the survey reveals that almost half of Mabini residents are severely food insecure. 32% of the population are moderately food insecure, 13.6% mildly food insecure, and only 6.7% of the population are secure about their food situation. These numbers were obtained through a survey of a sample of Mabini residents and are categorized by analyzing whether they exhibit signs of food insecurity or otherwise. An example of which is that if a resident answers yes to questions 7, 8, or 9, regardless of frequency, or have answered that they often eat smaller or fewer meals in a day, they will be categorized as severely food insecure due to the fact that they exhibit signs of being severely food insecure. Going further in depth, about 4 out of 5 residents worry about their food situation at least once or twice a month, and are both unable to eat preferred foods and are limited to what they can eat as well. About 75% of residents eat foods they don't want to eat at least once a month, and more than half are forced to eat smaller portions of food. Around 33% of the population are either forced to have less meals in a day or have no food at all in the household. And a little less than 30% of the population of Mabini go to sleep hungry at least once a month. And lastly, about 14% of the population are forced to go through a whole day without eating at least once a month. So for the first evaluation, we have analyzed the residents of Mabini based on their food security status and average monthly income. The graph shows that the majority of those in the severe and moderate food category have incomes of less than 5,000 pesos a month. which presents one glaring issue in the province in that income and food insecurity are linked together. The lower the income is, the more likely you will end up as severely or moderately food insecure. Those in the mild category have a balanced, if very small, percentage between average income, and it is applied even more so in the food secure category. Note, however, that in the severe category, there is a resident with a monthly income of 40 to 50,000 and is categorized as severely food insecure. This has been determined to be an outlier, as the total expenses of the household does not make sense when considering the apparent income of said household, with the former being less than a quarter of the latter. Okay, so for the second evaluation, food security and enrolled beneficiary programs were considered. And the data reveals that despite being enrolled in either the 4P program or the SSBFP program, or even both, majority of them are still either severely or moderately food insecure, with only 11% of residents in the severe category have not enrolled in either of the programs, and 21% of moderately food insecure residents have not enrolled in either as well. Okay, now let's move on to the identifications of needs and vulnerabilities of the province. The group has identified 3 problems in the province, the first of which is a lack of stable income, as only half of the population have stable jobs that can support the expenses that each household needs. The second is a lack of an effective financial support program that can support the households of Mabini, as the SBFP program only supports up to 3 students per household, and there is a significant percentage of families with more than 3 children. Lastly is the food insecurity issue throughout the province, which the group believes is because of the 2 problems stated beforehand. The group also noticed that none of the residents in GDAS are food secure, which is worth to mention because of the GDAS accessibility issues.
In this last portion of this presentation, we will be discussing the recommendations and conclusions we have come up with based on all of the data that was presented throughout the entirety of the video, as well as the needs of the municipality. These include the provision of additional opportunities for the people, enhancement and amelioration of the government programs, specifically the 4Ps and SPFP, and lastly, the development and improvement of overall infrastructure in the area. Our first recommendation is the provision of additional opportunities for the people. Based on the results for the current working status of the household heads, it was noted that there were only 49.2% who had stable jobs while the rest did not. Around half of the households in Mabini municipality have an unstable income system. This means that these households would not be able to support their families as much. Because of these, we suggest holding job fairs and other hiring events to make jobs more accessible for them. In which case, there would be more who are financially stable, or at least more who have a stable income source. Moreover, we suggest improving the state of agriculture in the province of Mabini, as half of the households as well depends on this type of industry. When improving agriculture, you're also able to offer more jobs for such goal. So in this situation, it's beneficial for everyone. The next recommendation is the enhancement and amelioration of the government's programs, specifically the 4Ps and SBFP. This can be done by encouraging more families to partake in both of the government programs that are offered. We have noticed that 40.7% are not part of 4Ps program, while 50.8% are not part of the SBFP programs, which are high considering the needs that they have. When more people participate in these programs, they are able to receive more financial and educational support for their families. Although we support these programs and believe in what they do, we would also recommend that these programs higher their allocation of funds for larger families. According to the 4Ps, there are 2 types of grants, health and education. Under the health grant, these families are provided a total of 6,000 pesos every year. As for the educational grant, they are given a total of 3,000 every year with a maximum of 3 children registered per family. Yet based on the data of the household sizes, we can see that the average of the 59 households that have 6 people living together. Assuming that 1 or 2 of these are adults, it seems as though the average size is already over the limit. Moreover, 28 out of the 59 households also have 4 or more children, which can be seen as unfair. This is why we are suggesting to increase the allocation. Lastly, for this recommendation, we suggest adding, planning, and offering more activities and services that help these families educate themselves regarding financial literacy. These may include talks, workshops, and other family activities. This way, the family is not only being given money and financial support, they know how to spend their money wisely.
The final recommendation of the group is an improvement of existing infrastructure in the province. This is because that more than half of the population of Mabini reside in Gidas, and all residents who categorize as food secure reside in the poblacion, while majority of those categorized as severe reside in Gidas. Our second point is that better or more roads may improve accessibility of GDAS and may allow those who reside in said GDAS have better access to the poblations for job opportunities.
That ends our presentation. Thank you for listening.